Matt, I gotta be real with you. I've seen a lot of takes on the old Bird app, as they used to call it back in the day, complaining about the players' era ruining college basketball, complaining about the mystique being gone, complaining about the fans. I do not care if we get contests like this. This
Yep.
game was freaking awesome. This is two defensive juggernauts. I said that in the preview. You would expect low scoring, which it was relatively,
Mhm.
but the story was the guards. It was just these ball handlers coming up with clutch play after clutch play. Kingston Fleming, Jacoby Gillespie exchanging blows. You have a Bishop Boswell just masterclass both
Yep.
defensively and getting into the paint. I thought he was massive in this one. Ultimately, I think Tennessee's role players came in bigger than Houston's role players. I thought they showed up more than the vets on Houston's team. When you look at Manuel Sharp in single digits, Kristen Nack fouling out, JoJo Tugler again. Sort of a nondescript game. Yeah, didn't really do as much defensively as you would like. Struggle with
Mhm.
turnovers again, but yeah, Tennessee they had great outputs from guys like Jalen Carey and just unexpected production, and it results in a 76-73 win. I know you were in the building for this one, which I got to give you a shout out for going from the arena to your hotel, and you're still on track to make it in time for the Maryland Gonzaga tip as we record. This is a man of many talents with Matt Moderno here, but let's hear the in-person takeaways.
I'm getting my steps in. I'll say that much. Running back and forth here, but it's worth it. This felt like a Final Four matchup to me. Like both these teams are actually really good. And you mentioned kind of a low score. Neither team shoots particularly well in this game. They were both in the mid 40s, which is fine. The 3-point percentage better for Houston, which is kind of crazy. You'd think if Houston shoots 38% from three, they're gonna outscore a lot of teams here. But I thought Tennessee was really good defensively. That shouldn't be a shock to anyone, but they popped more defensively to me than Houston did. I think some of what the struggles for Tennessee offensively were just like Jacoby Gillespie just missed some shots
Hmm.
he's been making for the last 2 years basically. So he goes 5 of 16 tonight, 3 of 9 from three. Probably two or three of those threes went 90% of the way down and then came back out. Like that changes this game if he makes them. But I'm so glad you mentioned Bishop Boswell because that's my number one note is like he wins this game for them.
Hmm.
He's the dude that shows up, play like pick up at Lifetime Fitness, and he's wearing like black Air Force Ones, and he's got like his fist clenched like the Arthur meme. Like he looks on the court like so intense, and it's like I'm either gonna cry or I'm gonna fight you. And I can't tell like which one he's gonna do at any given moment. But like that dude wants it probably as bad as anyone. And this is like a team, like a game full of two teams where guys want it. And
Hmm.
I felt like he was the one who wanted it the most of anyone on the court. He was pushing the ball. He was moving his feet defensively. He was clapping at people defensively. I thought he was huge. Jalen Carey is like maybe the best Jalen Carey Tennessee game just from like an impact perspective. He and Amari Abram both do some things that are like, no, no, don't do that, no, please. And they it's not even a no, no, yes. They're just a
Uh,
no, no, no. But then he'll just make a play a few minutes later, and you're like, okay, well,
yeah.
he made it back. So both those guys I thought were like sneaky impactful in this game overall.
I think that's really well said on Carey. I wanna harbor in on Boswell for a second longer though before we transition to Jalen Carey. There was a couple times in the first half where you mentioned it. He was living in the paint, like getting
Yeah,
into the lane at will against this nasty Houston defense. A couple times when he was like getting to the rack, I was like, oh wow, like I didn't realize Jacoby Gillespie wore number three. And then I
exactly.
realized I
Yep.
realized because in that moment I'm like, huh, like Gillespie's getting to the paint a little more aggressively than I realized. And I was like, oh wait, this is Bishop Boswell doing it. But it
Mhm.
was that's a high compliment because you know how highly I think of Gillespie, but he looked like a starter out there. And I know he started this game, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think this was his first start ever at Tennessee.
It's not a frequent thing at the very least. I don't know off the top of
Yeah.
my head if he's ever gotten one in the past, but I would stick with that formula because like Gillespie I think is pretty good defensively, but he's not like Jemai Mashak, like they
Mhm.
need that kind of guy. And I think Boswell is like honestly like that kind of like perimeter defender. He was really good.
Yeah, he started their first two games against Mercer and Northern Kentucky, then missed their next three, played 19 minutes against Rutgers. So first start against a power conference opponent in his career. And yeah, I love the comparison to Jemai Mashak. I would say, I mean, Mashak really turned himself into a serviceable offensive player by the end of his career. I think Boswell's on track to do the same.
Mhm.
Even had some really nice passes, was just like
He did.
dissecting this Houston defense and finding those bigs for easy looks. And You mentioned Carey specifically, but I think this was something we talked about in the preview. You look up and down the roster, and they just have like this stable of large dudes who are
Hmm.
physical, who can rebound. They're all pretty much all of them are nondescript. None of them are going to blow you away. Like Felix Okpara, big shout to him with hitting a three tonight. It's nice to see him make a basket outside the paint. But guys like Kate Phillips, JP Estrella, those dudes are going to play around the basket, and even Jalen Carey to a lesser extent. But they're all just good. There's like no drop off when
Hmm.
they come into the game, and I just think that's so massive to like be able to lean on those guys to not hurt you, to put up. I mean, to put up 38 points in the paint, which is eight more than Houston got. They held their own on the offensive glass. I believe they had 13, Houston had 15. If you can match them, or I guess not really get, even if you lose that battle, if it's that close, that
Right.
helps a ton. So, and then with Carey to your no, 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 but sometimes it works out point. You see the nice footwork in the
Yeah.
post. Like it's really tantalizing. Where it's like, okay, this dude's kind of a dancing bear type when you get him the
Hmm.
ball around the basket. So I thought he was just a really fun player to watch when he gets going.
I've seen him a bunch because he started at JMU and then headed with Mark Byington down to Vanderbilt. So like I'm familiar with his game, but seeing him do it at the power conference level, he's also maybe like an irrational confidence guy too. Like he was not remotely afraid of like everybody's heard someone in the media say JoJo Tugler could be the best defensive player in the country, and Jalen Carey was clapping for the ball when Jacoby Gillespie had a mismatch and was like demanding it. I'm like, that could get you in some trouble later in the season, but I want role players that are not afraid of the moment. And
Yeah, for real.
you mentioned some of the Houston younger guys, like the bigs. I don't know how much they wanted the moment necessarily.
Hmm.
Like Harwell looks still kind of like a shell of himself from a couple years ago. Sanak, just not much there offensively, although I do think he is a problem for people with the length and
Hmm.
athleticism around the rim. Flemings was the dude. Like he wanted every bit of the smoke tonight, and they could not guard him. And they left Gillespie on him a lot, which I would have maybe gone to Boswell, but I think
Yeah.
they were afraid like at some point Uzan's gonna get going
Hmm.
but you win this game if you're Tennessee without Nate Ament playing particularly well. And Riley, I don't know if they said on the broadcast, we never heard anything about it in person, but he was on the sideline a lot working with the trainer and
Mm.
stretching and went into the locker room early in the first half at a certain point. So something was clearly bothering him and he didn't look like himself. He looked tentative trying to take people off the dribble.
Yeah.
So to win a game like this where you get 9 points from Nate Ament, like that's impressive to me.
Yeah, truth be told, I had this game on mute. I had the
Okay,
multi-screens going with the
I
the
got you.
UNC St. Bonaventure game,
Fair.
but I was logged into both, fear not, so I couldn't tell you what they said on the broadcast. But yeah, I had the same thought where it's like, man, I mean, Amon he's been on the bench for a long time in this one, and it just seemingly didn't matter because Boswell was that good. And Gillespie, his percentages weren't great, came up massive
Yeah,
with the free
he's so
throws, with the
clutch.
big
Yeah.
three. Yeah, so clutch. And even I was fascinated by this. He didn't get credited for a steal, but I could have sworn he had a massive steal down the stretch when Houston was pushing to take the lead back. And I had the thought where I was like, oh, got to bookmark this for when Matt and I talk about like not the greatest athlete, not the most lockdown defender, but just ridiculously smart. Like he's maybe it was just a deflection, but I feel
He's
like
got one. He's got one steal on the book here.
really,
Yeah.
maybe I was looking at the wrong box
I've got
score,
the
but
the live stats up from players there at the very least. Maybe the ESPN box
oh,
is not caught up yet or something, but they've got
okay.
they've got him credited with one steal. And I remember we were talking about, and Boswell had a couple late too, where he just like blindsided a dude and then took off and forced the foul. And
Hmm.
there was one where I think Boswell went for the steal and the ball bounced, hit him in the face, rolled out ahead of him, and he dove for the ball and tips it ahead to Gillespie, who then goes to dunk it and like struggles to cuff the ball, misses. And I want to say Ament followed it up. I forget
Yes,
who put
yes.
it back in,
Maybe I
but
think
yeah.
that's the defensive possession I was
Yeah,
thinking
I,
of.
I think
Yeah.
that steal might have actually been credited to Boswell.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
Gotcha.
but
Thank
they
you
were
for
both
clarifying.
involved there, and it just directly hit him in the face and kept going too. Because I was
Yeah.
right in front of them for that. Like more power to him for staying with the play.
Yeah, man. It's just so many like Tennessee just made so many clutch hustle plays down the stretch in this one and really locked in their defense. And we can turn to Houston again. With them, the story is Kingston Flemings. If you want the good side, I think it's the poor shot selection, the no show from Chris Sinak. I
Mm.
love Sinak like as a high schooler, his tape coming out and everything, and had higher expectations for them. I thought he'd be shooting a better percentage, even with freshmen struggling sometimes. He's been really good on the glass, good defender, of course, but they just need a lot more offensively from him, and particularly from deep. Like, I guess I know they still shot 38% in this one, but you got two Chase McCarthy threes. I don't Chase McCarthy threes. I don't think you can always bank on that. Harwell hit one, which he's a little up and down. So I don't know. I just think when you look at this squad that was a top five shooting team by the 3-point percentages a season ago, like Sinak's supposed to be your stretch big man, and right now he's I'm
Yeah,
gonna sound like a
I don't.
I'm gonna sound like a dummy because he's still at 41% on the season, but for an
Do you
open,
trust him to make big ones down the stretch of a game? Yes, I think that's really the question, and I don't think he'd be one of my top three guys I'd want shooting
Mhm,
one of those, tough, down three against Tennessee. If this is actually a Final Four rematch or something like that,
mhm.
I don't want him taking shots like that.
That's a good way to put it. Because thank you for saving me. Because I was like, oh wow, the
Yeah.
percentages. I'm surprised he's shooting 41% because I don't know. This just he's struggled from the field these past two games. His percentages
Mhm.
have been a little lower than you would like. As a whole, did you notice anything Tennessee was doing, particularly defensively, that like forced Houston into all these tough shots?
I tell you what, like Parr is just long, and I think he's a big bothersome dude for people. Estrella is really good. Like I kind of don't get why he doesn't play more minutes. I don't know if it's like the knee thing. He wears a bigger knee brace than maybe anyone I've ever seen. It looked like it was one of those like robotic braces that like power your leg for you. It was so intense up close. So I don't know, maybe he just can't. But I thought he was impactful. I thought he was physical. I think this is just like a so next, somebody like he maybe just would, if this were next year, I think he would be like a monstrous college basketball player. And this year, it's still a little like figuring yourself out, figuring your
Mm,
spots out, getting used to some physicality. And these were two physical games for them the last 2 days. And
yeah.
I just like he's not getting that on a high school court very often. So it's gonna maybe take a while.
Yeah, I think that's well said. As we will wrap it up with some of the more Houston concerns before giving Kingston Flemings his flowers. But, again, another poor shooting night from Milos Uzan. He made one that counted. I think that cut the lead to within one, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 63-62 with 2.5 minutes to go, and he hit his only one of the game. Still had a nice scoring output, finished with 4 assists. Like,
Mhm.
there are some signs of life there of the player we saw last year, but where are you at in terms of just like, are you worried about this shooting slump he's been in? He's at 26% on the season, and it just hasn't felt like it's clicked. I don't know if it's a tension between him and Kingston Flemings where it's like last year, part of what I thought made this Houston team so great was where Uzam made massive strides as a lead guard who just seemed to have this innate feel when to go get his own versus when to get his teammates involved. And he
Mm.
had some great clutch moments as well. But it just seems like Flemings is so much better as an offensive initiator. You want the ball in his
Yeah.
hands as the shot clock's winding down. He proved that twice in the final 2 minutes tonight.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's just a weird fit between the two, but what have you made of Uzan's struggles?
It felt a little my turn, your turn ish tonight, especially late in that game. I don't know, like the 1 of 6 from three is obviously concerning, but other than that, I thought he was pretty good. Like if he makes one more three of those, we're probably talking about like it was a pretty solid performance from him. He spent a lot of time with Boswell on him, like we talked about, who I thought was just really good. So I'm almost attributing it more to just like a guy he couldn't shake than just
Hmm.
like, so I don't know. I saw somebody tweet this out, and I feel bad because I thought it was an interesting thing of like this team misses Jawan Roberts more than they miss LJ Cryer, and they definitely miss Roberts, but I thought Cryer made everybody else's life so much easier offensively because you were not going to leave him, and Sharp was the guy who got left open the most, I felt like, and he was never going to miss like an open three.
Right.
But like for Uzan, like people had to guard him single coverage because you couldn't shade off of either of those two guys, and then he
Right.
would throw it down to the bigs. Like this year, the bigs aren't enough of a threat underneath. I think that does hurt them, but you just maybe don't like you're not scared of any of the other guy other than Flemings, and he hurt like he bit Tennessee a bit tonight, but I felt like they were more willing to live with him hurting them than some of these other guys. And he obviously had a great game, but it's interesting. I think I trust Kelvin Sampson more than maybe anybody to like figure it out.
Right.
And Christianek will basically be like a junior by the time they get to the NCAA tournament anyway, in terms of
Mhm.
like the wars he's been through in the Big 12. So I don't know. I think they'll be fine. I think just Tennessee is just really good, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. It's still like I know I've done a lot of Houston videos with Dion, and he's been saying Houston, we have a problem for 2 weeks now, and I'm not there yet. I would say I'm at a point where I'm like slightly worried based on the way it just hasn't meshed as quickly as I expected. However, of course, you got to mention Houston was 5-3 this time last year, and
Right.
things turned out pretty good for them.